Well, good morning. Thank you so very much for joining the Department of Water Resources Sustainable Groundwater Management Office today for our week of webinars. This is the second one. My name is Paul Goslin, and I'm the Deputy Director of Sustainable Groundwater Management at the Department of Water Resources. This week's public webinars is targeted to provide specific information for all interested parties and different audiences each day. We hope you'll join us for other webinars this week if they are of interest to you. Today's public webinars is on the 2022 Alternative 5-Year Update Submittal process. I wanted to take a moment up front to recognize that the work you are all doing to develop and update your alternatives plan is paving the way for a new era of water management where locals and their communities are charting what sustainable groundwater management looks like as we move forward into the future. This work in front of us, the collective groundwater community, is critically important since groundwater has served as a resource during prior droughts and during this current drought, where nearly 85% of Californians rely on groundwater for some portion of their water supply, and over 1.5 million Californians rely on domestic wells for drinking water. Submitting your alternative 5-year update continues the iterative process of managing groundwater resources and achieving your sustainability goals for over 20 years. So again, thank you for your dedication to this important work and being a leader for your community. We have set up the Teams platform today where you can either join from a computer device or call in. There's an option in Teams to have closed captioning. We have the chat function open so you can provide questions and comments throughout the presentation, and our staff have incorporated time for us to have a good dialogue today. With that, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the staff that will be hosting the public webinar today. From DWR's SGMA office, we have Heather Shannon, Greg Altair, Ben Gooding, Tim Godwin, and Melissa Sparks-Krantz. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Craig to start the presentation. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. And thanks, Paul. And welcome again to this webinar, which focuses on how local agencies in basins with approved alternatives can submit their periodic evaluations for those alternatives. And if you're scratching your head right now thinking, but I didn't come here to learn about how to submit a periodic evaluation, I came here to learn about how to submit a 5-year update, then don't worry, you're in the right spot. The Water Code does say that any local agency shall submit an alternative by January 1st, 2017, and every 5 years thereafter. And certainly, I've used the term 5-year update pretty strongly in my lexicon throughout the past several years. But I would note that the GSP regulations, under the heading of periodic evaluation by agency, states that each agency shall evaluate its plan at least every 5 years, and then importantly, whenever the plan is amended. And so we're just trying to use this term periodic evaluation as a more generic term that encompasses the submittal process, every 5 years and that evaluation, but also the same process will be used when an agency, whether it's an alternative or a GSP, amends that document and submits it back to the department. So we're going to try to get everybody on board with this periodic evaluation terminology when we're talking about this process, and hence the name change on the title slide and throughout the slides today. Of course, these evaluations are filed, are prepared and submitted to the state to comply with the portion of the Water Code that states, and I'll paraphrase, a local agency shall periodically evaluate its alternative, assess changing conditions in the basin that may warrant modification of the plan or management objectives, and may adjust components in the plan. These evaluations shall focus on determining whether the actions under the plan are meeting the plan's management objectives and whether those objectives are meeting the sustainability goal in the basin. So my colleague, we go to the next slide. Thanks. So just a few administrative things. As Paul mentioned, we have several ways to join the webinar today. You all should have received this information by email, and since you're on now, hopefully you didn't have any friction in terms of getting onto the meeting, but it's there again on the slide for your information if you need it, the phone number and the conference ID if you need to join by audio. As a reminder, we do encourage questions today. To submit questions, use the either the Teams chat functionality shown in the right-hand portion of the image on the slide. Submit your questions on there and we'll read those aloud. Alternatively, if you're not able to use the chat functionality, or if you're joining by phone and you're not able to chat in real time, you can also email us questions at sgmps@water.ca.gov. One more time, that's sgmps@water.ca.gov. We have staff that are monitoring that email account right now, and they will read those questions aloud if you have them. We are encouraging questions that are on topic about how to submit alternatives, 5-year updates to the alternatives, or these periodic evaluations for the alternatives, or monitoring data for the alternatives, those kinds of things. Questions that are not on the topic of this, you can still submit those to sgmps@water.ca.gov, and we will consider those for future webinars and future guidance. So with that out of the way, I'll just note that my colleague, Ben Gooding, who I'll transition to next, is going to walk through the nuts and bolts about how to submit these periodic evaluations. Many of you on the phone will recall the process for submitting your original alternative to the SGMA portal. It was a process that worked, certainly, but it wasn't necessarily pretty, and it wasn't necessarily terribly user-friendly, either for the submitting agencies or for the public. And that's especially true as time went on, and annual reports were submitted on top of annual reports, and it got a little hard to track sometimes all these documents. The SGMA portal team's been working hard to update various aspects of the portal, and for this periodic evaluation submittal, they've now geared it to have a very similar look and feel as the GSP submittals, as well as what we anticipate the future submittal of periodic evaluations for GSPs will look like. So if you're a consultant or a local agency that has used the SGMA portal to submit a GSP, know that this process is going to look a lot more like that one than it does, or than it did for the original alternative submittal. Again, the focus is on the nuts and bolts of how to submit your periodic evaluation to the portal. Our intended audience is the local agencies and their consultants that will be making these submittals. For those of you who don't fall into those categories, you may find today's presentation useful, but just know that we are focused on kind of the nuts and bolts of how to get those things submitted up on. Ben will mention this, and I want to reiterate that as you have questions throughout the submittal process after today, please reach out to the department. Ben and the team that works on the portal has done a great job of getting these alternatives up, getting GSPs and GSP annual reports up. It may seem like a daunting task, but our team is here to help. And with that, I will turn it over to Ben to start the meat of today's presentation. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Craig. So as Craig briefly mentioned, the goal of this presentation will be primarily to discuss the new periodic evaluation tool that is still actively in development, but should be finalized fairly soon. So during this presentation, I will be covering some slightly reminder information similar to what for many of those on this call were on the previous alternative meetings was covered there, as well as the new periodic evaluation material and some information related to the public commenting period for these periodic evaluations, and some just information related to when we think this tool will be released, as well as some additional reminders. And I did just want to state, while this tool is fairly close to being finalized, there could be some minor modifications compared to what is in this presentation to what is eventually made live on the SGMA portal. So just keep that in mind, but the overall process will be the same. So to get started with the periodic evaluation process, you will need to go to the alternative dashboard, which can be reached in 2 methods on the SGMA portal. If a user is logged in and on their homepage of the SGMA portal, they can either use the top banner to go to alternative dashboard, or by selecting alternative to GSP, it will take the user to their specific dashboard, which will display the information based on the associations they have within the SGMA portal. So on the dashboard, which many of you are familiar with, will be the alternatives that a user is associated with, which is based off the alternative agencies that user is again associated with, as well as the annual reports that have been submitted for those alternative basins. And now in the future, there will be the periodic evaluations. So when you want to start this process under the alternative dashboard, you would select new in the upper right-hand corner, and that will take you to the create periodic evaluation page. Initially, you will have this kind of pop-up that discusses or summarizes the submission process. I'll go over this in more detail throughout the presentation, but as Craig mentioned, the process is nearly identical to the GSP submission process, where there's the base information page, the section to upload your new adopted alternative or periodic evaluation, the elements of the plan, which can be submitted in multiple ways, supporting info, if there's any additional information that you would like to attach, the references that were used during the development of that evaluation, and then the confirmation page to submit to the department. So once this is started and you close out, this will be the first page that you see. In question 1, you simply select the alternative that you will be submitting a periodic evaluation for. Again, the basins or the alternatives that are listed in this drop-down menu are going to be based off the associations with the user, and will be based on the alternatives that are listed here will match the alternatives listed in the dashboard. So if you're a consultant submitting for a basin and you don't currently have those associations, you will need to ensure that that is provided for you from that agency. And then again, as we are moving away from this idea of 5, 10, 15, 20-year plans into this more generic periodic evaluation, it will simply be a sequential number. And so for this first round, all of these basins will be selecting just one, but in the future, you might not necessarily follow the 5, 10, 15, 20-year, and just your next one would be 2, 3, and so on. Once this is started, it will take you to the primary submission sections, which is similar to the GSP reporting system. And so this is the same information that was on that previous slide, just kind of in bigger pictures. But as I go through each of these sections, I will provide a little bit more information for kind of each part, spending more time on some sections than others. But overall, a lot of the information should be pretty straightforward based on past experience with the SGMA portal. If we jump straight into the submission process, this will be the first page that you see. Along the left-hand section of the periodic evaluation is going to be the same sections as the reporting system again, with base info, adopted alternative, elements of the plan, which has been broken down into different sub-articles, in the elements guide, and then supporting info, references, and plan submittal. The first base information page is where the alternative basin, which will be selected from the previous screen, is. You'll have the option to select the plan manager again. And now with this new idea of alternative agencies, which was discussed in previous meetings, you would select all of the alternative agencies within that basin that are associated with the development of the periodic evaluation. And then, if applicable, you would upload your 90-day notice to cities and counties. If that was completed, it's not necessarily required, as well as information related to the public hearing where this evaluation was adopted. And then with that, you would move on to the next section, which is where you would upload the document. This is where probably one of the largest changes to the previous alternative submission tool is. here we are requiring the submission of a single PDF, unlike the last submission process, which allowed tens of documents to be submitted alongside as a single alternative. I understand that this could cause some confusion or issues for some people, but you should aim to kind of combine the documents or your submission into a single PDF. As I continue into supporting info, if you are still referencing some fairly large technical studies that were kind of combined with your alternative, we can work around that, but there is significant more information required with this periodic evaluation, and a lot of that should be combined into a single PDF to the best of your ability. Once this is uploaded, it can take several minutes if the document is fairly large, but there is a kind of percentage loading screen that will tell you as it's going. And so if you do ever run into issues during this process, feel free to reach out to us. Then the probably most time-consuming portion of the submission process, which will be the elements of the plan, is where you're going to provide the page ranges of the document, the page ranges of your periodic evaluation, which are associated to the specific GSP regulation elements. There's two options for submitting this information. There's either the elements guide, which is going to be the Excel template, or there's the web form, and I'll go through both of those right now. The first one, which I think most people have used, is the elements guide. On this page, you'll be able to download the Excel template here, as well as elsewhere on the portal, which I'll show later. But the Excel template breaks down each of the reg elements that are required and not required, as well as provides the opportunity to enter the page ranges or any other information that users would like, such as table numbers, section numbers, figure numbers, and any notes. And so what the elements guide looks like is this. This is a screenshot from part of it. Any of the dark gray or grayed sections are elements that aren't required. Any of the white sections are those that are. When you do download the document, there is a tab that provides more details on the specific format on how to enter this information. But the primary requirements is that there is always must be a information entered into the page number of the plans column, or if a specific element doesn't apply to your basin, you could enter not applicable and then provide a note, but that column always has to have some information into it, while the section numbers, figure numbers, and table numbers are optional. Once this is completed, you would upload it into the previous screen. Actually, I'll go here. Upload it into this table, and then once it's uploaded, the portal would validate the information to ensure that there's no issues with any of the formatting or that any of the fields weren't left blank. And then that information would be uploaded into the web form, which is the second method to provide this information, which I'll discuss here. And so the web form is basically just the elements guide replicated into the web interface, where you can enter the page ranges and the additional information directly here. If you did use the Excel template, all this information or all the information from there would be populated into these fields. And so the other biggest change probably to this is the addition of this section right here, which just happens to be on the screenshot, which is the periodic evaluation by agency. And these are the elements that are specifically outlined as being required every time that a alternative or a GSP is updated or amended. And so for all of these basins, or for most of the alternative basins that will be submitting the 5-year update, these are new fields that are required. And so we're planning on using a lot of the information perhaps from previous submissions. You're going to want to ensure that you include these additional requirements. That is it for the elements guide. The next section is supporting information. The supporting information submission section is optional, but this is where you could provide any additional documents or files that you would like. Commonly, we see GIS files submitted here, potentially any reference technical studies or high resolution maps. Something that just doesn't fit within the standard kind of single document can be here. When you do upload the attachment, you will have to select the elements that you would like that document to be associated with, so that within the web form, it does show that that's also attached to it. But again, this section isn't required, it's optional, so you don't necessarily have to submit anything here. And the last primary submission section is going to be references. And so this is where agencies are going to submit a list of all of the references and technical studies that were relied upon during development of the periodic evaluation. The submission process here allows either agencies to provide a web link to where that reference is available. So if it is a technical study that's available online, you could simply provide a web link. However, if it's a document that's not readily available online, such as an internal study or just something along those lines, then we do require the submission of that actual document. And so this submission process also allows that. When submitting these references, there's two methods. You can either submit them one at a time, or you can use a batch import process. If you were to do the single process or single reference process, it will bring up this reference form, which also gives a good idea of what the required fields are. So the required fields are outlined with the red asterisks. We don't require as much detail as perhaps some other standard scientific references, but simply the author, title, published date, as well as some additional information if available is required. And then either the web link or the actual document itself must be attached, one or the other, and then save. And so this would be for a single reference, but since many basins likely have many, there's also a kind of batch import tool. The batch import tool allows you to upload up to 50 references at a time. So if you have more than 50, you're going to need to split them up into multiple import documents. But the way that the import process works is you can download the template here and elsewhere in the portal, which will show in just a little bit. You would then attach your completed template to section 1, and then for any actual documents that are being referenced would go in section 2. So what this reference template looks like is it's fairly straightforward. It's just a replication of the fields that were previously shown for the individual reference import. But the main change is, or difference is then this column H, which is file name or URL. So if you are attaching documents, it's really important that you include the identical file name and file path for that document, or else it's not going to save correctly. So if you were, in this example, submitting one of our BMPs, and this was how it was saved, you would need to ensure that every single part of this, including .pdf, is written, or else it's not going to make that connection between part 1 and 2 in the upload. And what this could cause happen is either A, you're going to receive an error based on some of the ways that it could be formatted, or if you just completely forgot, say, a file extension, it might save it as a web link requiring you to either delete that entry or edit it. As long as it's kind of saved the right way, then it shouldn't be an issue, and it's kind of allows the import of a lot of this information significantly quicker. So once you have these, I did these backwards. Once you have the Excel template and the documents uploaded, you can press import references, and if all goes smoothly, then they'll be saved all in one time. But again, it's only up to 50 at a time. So if you do have more references, you will need to upload them in 2 or multiple steps. And that takes us to the last part, which is just the submittal. There's really nothing specific on this page except for some statements about verifying that all of the information that's required is submitted. So this also includes, while not discussed today, that all of the data and information, monitoring network information has been submitted to the monitoring network module, that all the required fields within this system have been, completed and filled out, and that all of the references were saved correctly. And once this is complete, you can check this box that you've reviewed this information and submit to DWR. Once submitted, the department will be notified, and we have 20 days to post the periodic evaluation to the SGMA portal. During those 20 days, we would do a light check just to make sure that everything was uploaded correctly. And then once that's complete, we will quote unquote post the document to the SGMA portal, which is, if you're familiar with the GSP process, it's the same kind of process used there. Once that document is posted, the public comment period will open, which will be, for a period of at least 75 days from that date of posting. And so the process to submit public comments to these periodic evaluations are going to be the exact same as all other aspects of the SGMA portal that have been used in the past, where anyone can submit a comment, a SGMA portal account's not required, and all of that. So this should be fairly similar to past experiences. So some some information related to when we believe that this tool will be available for use, as well as just some reminders about steps to complete. We expect that the periodic evaluation submission tool is going to be released for use sometime during the week of November the 8th. That release is going to include a user guide, which will provide a step-by-step process with significantly more detail than discussed today. So if you're familiar with some of the other user manuals that have been created for other aspects of the portal, it's going to be that same format. However, the elements guide and the references Excel templates are available now on the SGMA portal resources page. And since this is likely a very large part of the submission process, you're encouraged to start this today or whenever you're prepared. And some additional reminders. During our last kind of alternative meeting, I did discuss the monitoring network module and how these alternative basins were now able to submit data to the monitoring module. You should be starting that process now if you haven't already. But if you haven't, you should start soon, as the expectation is that that's submitted alongside this 5-year update. And as a reminder, as discussed last time, alternative agencies are now responsible for the basin's spring 2021 data submission, which is, the requirement to ensure grant eligibility of one measurement collected between July 1st to December 31st and submitted to the monitoring network module. And so that would be the spring 2021 measurement. And so lastly, I just wanted to ensure that you guys knew where the SGMA portal resources page. So if you go to SGMA portal, along the top banner, there is a page that says resources that you can select, and I just realized something. And then down here on the alternative page, there would be the periodic evaluation elements guide and the elevation references template Excel guide. And that is about it for my presentation. I understand that there's quite a bit of information that's covered there, but we have a lot of time to answer any questions that you might have. And as always, or not as always, feel free to ask any questions that you have about other aspects of the alternative submission process, such as the monitoring module or annual reports. If there's questions that you think of after today's meeting, you can reach out to me and others at the GSP submittal@water.ca.gov email. With that, I think we're moved to questions.
All right, Ben. So we got a single questions thus far. So if you have others, please feel free to enter them into the chat, or Melissa has pasted in the SGMPS web email address for you to use. The initial, oh, here we go. Michelle's still firing away. Thank you, Michelle. Her first question was, is there a file size limit for uploading?
Heather, you could correct me on this, but I believe we recommend 10 gigabytes, but I believe that potentially we could go larger than that if needed. But I think 10 gigabytes is the recommended max size.
Yes, that's correct, Ben.
Great. And then her follow-up was, maybe we can touch on, since we have some time, the monitoring network again, and what's due and when.
Yeah, sure. If there was any specific aspects of the monitoring module submission that you would like to go over, I could, but related to what is due and when. The expectation is that the monitoring network that is going to be included with this periodic evaluation is submitted to the monitoring network module alongside the periodic evaluation. So this would be by that January 1st, 2021 date. However, since we did meet several weeks ago and stated that since it is now open and that the expectation was that these basins would start to migrate their wells from CASGEM and start to import their new wells, it was stated that this existing or current seasonal monitoring session of spring 2021 would be the responsibility of the alternative agencies. So while the expectation is that the monitoring network itself, so the wells, any of the general sites and stuff, are in there by January 1st, you should also include at least one measurement collected during that spring season for those groundwater wells alongside it. And so that varies a little bit from some of the information that was stated yesterday if you listen to the GSP call, but just based on the timeline of the alternatives being slightly different, we expect the monitoring network information in there by January 1st, 2021, in addition to a groundwater elevation measurement for those wells.
Well, Ben, those are the questions we have. You must have covered some pretty good ground here. If anybody else has any others, please feel free to update, but we're always here to respond. As Ben has highlighted, feel free to reach out in a variety of formats to get a hold of us. We're happy to respond.
Thanks, Tim. And if there's not any other questions, I think I'll hand it back to Craig, or we can wait another minute or so and see if potentially anybody thinks of something.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. We'll just maybe give a minute before we end and see if anybody does think of a question to ask. In the meantime, I will drop I'll drop the link to the Sigma portal resources into the chat. And
So we did get an additional question from Brian, basically asking, would we like the document submittal to be a single document, including appendices?
Yes, that's the idea, and that's kind of what's desired and what's been used so far on the GSP side. If there is an issue with file size because of a large number of appendices, we can discuss that separately, but you should attempt to get it into one document to the best of your ability.
Great. We've opened up the can. Now we're flowing. So Michelle backs up her question regarding the file size, and she's curious if they'll get an error. She's anticipating her file being quite large, and she's concerned as will they get an error if that occurs, or maybe what will be the response of the portal?
I don't believe you would get an error. There's just more of a concern about potentially timing out with something that large. But I think in your case there is a good example of if you have this extremely large model report that is fairly limited to a specific section. That's something that you could upload into supporting info if it seemed like it fit better there, especially if when you tried to combine everything, it just seemed like this is just unnecessarily large. And these very specific kind of studies that are related to just a very specific handful of elements is something you could include in the supporting information section. So again, each basin is going to be unique, but I think that would be a clear example of something that we could move towards the supporting info section rather than kind of overloading a single document there.
But also fair to say, right, Ben, that we haven't had too much issue with, the GSPs from the critically overdrafted basin, some of which also were pretty large documents with pretty big modeling studies. Those seem to go pretty smoothly, if I recall.
Yeah, it does have the ability to handle quite a bit. So, I would aim for combining everything first. But again, there is potential for workaround. But it should be able to. The Super Portal can handle quite a large document size.
Great. And then a question coming in from Ken Min. How would you post the public comments? And is that would they be posted during or after the 75 days? And then maybe some clarification from Ken. Are you referring to comments that have come in prior to submission, or were you referring to comments that occur following submission of the update? So Ben, maybe we talk about the public comment process to begin with.
Yeah, sure. It looks like he just responded. So once the document is posted and the public comment period is open, if you were to submit a public comment using the general or the standard kind of process thus far, the public comment would be posted shortly after submission. It's no longer immediate, but we expect that it would be posted by the end of the day and available for viewing from the rest of the public and as well as the alternative basin.
That wraps up the questions that we have so far.
So I just encourage everyone to take a look at those resources to the extent, like Ben mentioned, you can start some of those templates now if you're able. I think it'd be a good thing to start early. Reach out when you do have questions to gspsubmittal@water.ca.gov. Ben and the rest of the team are very responsive, and we know there's going to be a lot of work both from you all submitting your alternative periodic evaluations as well as the 2022 GSP submittals that are all coming in December, January. So It's going to be a busy time for all of us, but we're here to help. And thanks everyone for joining today. We do appreciate your participation. And I think that's it for me.